Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Actually, it's Brian Sussman filling in for Dr. Michael Savage. He'll be back tomorrow. MichaelSavage.com for the latest headlines and sign up for the Savage newsletter. And don't forget Michael's book, Scorched Earth, What Trump Must Do. What Trump must do to remake America, to make America great again. And don't forget the book, Teddy and Me. It's a wonderful one by Michael. So Brian Sussman out here on the left coast. Thanks for joining us. Where do we want to go with this? Well, let's go to this story. It's Bernie's fault. It's WikiLeaks' fault. It's Russia's fault. It's Comey's fault. It's the alt-right media's fault. It's the fake news' fault. It's the voting machine's fault. It's Jill Stein's fault. It's the Electoral College's fault. Come on, you've heard it all by now, right? You've heard all of that and more. How about the DNC just ran an expensive, old-school campaign with an unappealing candidate who didn't articulate an endearing message? How about that for starters? How about people look at what's happening along that southern border and they cringe? Oh, they're not hateful individuals. They're not bigots. They're not phobic. They look at the border and they're terrified. They look what's happening in their cities and in their states, and they're terrified. They look at these homegrown extremists here in the United States, and they're terrified. They look at people coming to this country who could give a rat's rear end about assimilation, and they're terrified. That's what we saw. Hillary didn't address that. They look at their manufacturing jobs. They look at their mining jobs. They look at their logging jobs. There are no jobs. Hillary didn't address that either. But let's talk for a moment about the stuff that has made Savage. You know, I've been listening to Michael Savage since the mid-'90s. I broadcast on KSFO in San Francisco, his flagship station. It's the station he started on. He built that station. Kind of like the song, We Built This City on Rock and Roll. Well, this city is the city they're talking about in that song, but he built this station in the city of rock and roll. And let's just say this, like seeds in a garden, refugees are being planted in cities and towns all across America, and people don't like it. It's not that they hate the refugees. It's just the other stuff that some of these refugees are associated with. Borders, language, culture, my friends. It all comes back to borders, language, culture. Those were the pillars of Trump's campaign. Those are the very pillars of everything Savage has been talking about since I started listening to him in the mid-'90s here in San Francisco. But let's talk about these refugees, shall we? They're being placed in small cities and towns all over America. Places like Twin Falls, Idaho. Places like Stone Mountain, Georgia. Places like Rutland, Vermont. No input from the local communities. They're just placed there. Now, I know how it works in the Savage Nation. Many of you are going to want to talk. You've got your own stories to share. And you'll be able to affirm and confirm much of what I'm talking about. So the number is 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. But once the residents find out about the plan, it's too late to stop it or even ask any questions. And, of course, those who do ask questions are bigots or xenophobes who hate refugees, right? Twin Falls, Idaho. You've heard the story from up that way. I heard it before it came a story. You heard the story about the 3 refugee boys raping a 5-year-old special needs girl in an apartment complex. It was witnessed by a person in the complex, and the oldest boy amongst these refugees actually filmed the assault on his cell phone, so to speak. So there's no lack of evidence here. But I heard about this before it became a national news story. A friend of mine had moved from California to Twin Falls. He was living in that very same complex for a period of time. When he came back to California, he said, "You wouldn't believe what I saw up in Twin Falls. I lived in this apartment complex. It was filled with refugees from Iraq and Sudan." And he said it was very clear that everybody was on welfare. The only ones that ventured out of the houses were the women to go to the stores. It was the women raising the kids. The men always stayed inside, keeping themselves. And it seemed to my friend that these men had 2, 3, 4, or even 5 wives, who, upon, when asked, would say, "Well, this is my cousin. This is my. And he said that he saw the young men in that apartment complex terrorizing anybody who wasn't Muslim. I mean, this was my friend's story to me when he came back from Twin Falls. So when we had the story of the 3 refugee boys molesting a 5-year-old special needs girl in an apartment complex, immediately he called me up. He said that was the same apartment complex. And I put him on the radio in San Francisco. We talked about it. But we've been getting up to 10,000 Somalia refugees alone since the 90s, and we started this refugee program under Carter in the 80s. The problem is we're vetting them wrong. The vetting that's going on currently is absolute insanity. We're importing people into this country who have values antithetical to American values. They're antithetical to American values. They don't care about the red, white, and blue. They don't care about life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. They don't care about the Constitution. I mean, there's a documentary, very famous documentary, and I saw it a couple months ago. Amy Horowitz, I believe is her name, or maybe it's a he. A.M.I. Horowitz did a documentary in Minneapolis, a city with a huge Somali Muslim population. Almost every Muslim the filmmaker spoke to said Sharia law should be supreme over the U.S. Constitution. Those aren't the type of people we should be bringing into this country. We want the people like my grandparents, who came here and said, "I want to be an American. I want to be an American so bad I'm not even going to let my kids speak our native tongue. They're going to learn English. We're going to be Americans." But here's the problem. Look at France. Look at Belgium. Look at Sweden. Look at many places around the world. Muslim immigration gangs running the streets. I mean, in Malmö, Sweden, Muslim immigration gangs run the city. Medical personnel won't even respond to emergency calls without police protection. And this all started under a Carter administration scheme. The Refugee Administrations Program, it's called. And since then, the United States has admitted hundreds of thousands of aliens. Now, just to show you how benevolent we are, and maybe one might say what big suckers we are with this immigration, the U.S. took in 2/3 of the world's refugees resettled in 2014 alone. I'm going to repeat that. In 2014 alone, the United States took in 2/3 of the world's refugees. Second place country, Canada. They took in 10%. From Iraq alone, the number is 120,000 since 2007. So why am I pointing that out? I think it's ridiculous. Why would we be taking anybody from Iraq? Now, listen to me before you jump to conclusions. We lost thousands of American lives fighting in that country. We spent hundreds of billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to make Iraq supposedly livable. Boy, do we suck. We spent all that money. Obviously, it didn't work, so we have to allow them to come here now? I thought we were making the country great for them. We spent money. We spent blood, treasure, American lives. And we're importing them to come live here? I thought we were making it good for them to live there. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe you have a different opinion. Give me a call, 855-400-7282. But where does this all begin? And when's it all going to end? I'll tell you what's going to end in just a moment, but I'll tell you where it begins with the United Nations. The United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees working in tandem with our ridiculous State Department, which resettles the refugees throughout the United States with the assistance of hugely, lavishly, bigly compensated contractors, many of them working for church groups. without any consultation with the states in which Washington plants these assimilation-resistant imports, if I may. But the responsibility for vetting the immigrants, that's the Department of Homeland Security. Now, we'll talk about the vetting process because I think it's fascinating. The vetting we do is ridiculous. A background check is only as good as the available information one has. And when it comes to the people from Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and Sudan, we don't have a lot to go on. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, we do a great job with this. Oh, we know how to vet. Oh, yes. Well, the problem is we're vetting for the wrong thing. We're vetting for terrorism. What we should be vetting for is one's acceptance or rejection of Sharia law. Because Sharia law is Islam's framework, societal framework, and their legal code. And we don't vet for Sharia. I told you about that documentary in Minneapolis. The filmmaker asks all these Somalis in Minneapolis, what do you think of Sharia versus the Constitution? Oh, Sharia. I don't care about the Constitution. I care about Sharia. Muslims who believe in classical Sharia, folks, we say, well, what about freedom of religion in this country? It has nothing to do with religion. They believe in Sharia, and Sharia rejects American democracy. Sharia rejects the belief that we have in this country that people have a right to govern themselves. Sharia believes that people are, the people are subjects, not citizens. Sharia believes that people are powerless to question, much less change Allah's law. Sharia discriminates openly against women and non-Muslims. Now, they would tell you that it's not discrimination, but I'm telling you from looking through the American lens, it's discrimination. It licenses wars of aggression against the infidel. This is all Sharia. We should be vetting for one's belief in Sharia. Instead, we're vetting for terrorism. So we're vetting for the wrong thing. We're ignoring all the dynamics of jihadism. Because Sharia leads to jihad. We're screwing up. Now, why am I hopeful? I'm hopeful because I'm looking at the guy that Donald Trump has nominated for Homeland Security. And at the end of the day, Homeland Security is in charge of the vetting. This dude is a righteous man. The former head of the U.S. Southern Command. General John Kelly, another Marine. This is the guy that was responsible for managing security threats posed by criminal drug networks based in South and Central America. He also oversaw Gitmo, by the way. This is a guy who did 40 years in the Marine Corps. This is a guy who has testified before Congress on numerous occasions about the, quote, relative ease with which human smugglers moved tens of thousands of people to our nation's doorstep. He also cautioned Congress that, quote, these smuggling routes are potentially vulnerable to our homeland. And he also said terrorist organizations could seek to leverage those same smuggling routes to move operatives with intent to cause grave harm to our citizens or even bring weapons of mass destruction to the United States. This is the type of guy we need at the helm of Homeland Security. So I remain hopeful. But how about you? 855-400-SAVAGE. Brian Sussman filling in on this, The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up tomorrow morning from 5 to 9, it's the KSFO Morning Show on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Brian Sussman in for Dr. Michael Savage. Michael's back tomorrow. Don't forget michaelsavage.com, all the latest news there. Plus, very easy to purchase a copy of his book, Scorched Earth, or Teddy and Me would be another idea. So we were just talking about this refugee resettlement program, this insane Muslim refugee resettlement program we have here in the United States, bringing people into this country who, by and large, have no interest in assimilation, who look at the Constitution as being inferior to Sharia law, and they're being inserted without anybody's thumbs up or thumbs down into, generally speaking, white Christian towns across America. Like, for example, Twin Falls, Idaho. And that's resulted in disaster. John's calling from KBOI in Idaho. John, thanks for checking in on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I live about 2 hours from Twin Falls, and it's amazing how quickly that story disappeared from our newscasts. And when it first came out, it became almost like a social media pariah where the initial knee-jerk response was, these were not Muslim refugees. It didn't happen the way it's being announced. And then it just went away. And it's almost, our newscast doesn't seem to be as liberal as California. I just came back from Northern California, being down there for a while, but apparently it is, because it's amazing how you won't hear about that story.
Yeah, it is amazing, but it's very real. You had 3 refugee boys raping a 5-year-old special needs girl, and there were witnesses, there's video, there's everything, and you're right. For whatever reason, the authorities up there wanted to bury the story, and they probably, everything's about fake news right now, John, right? Fake news this, fake news that. It was probably initially being described as, oh, that's a fake news story. And in fact, now that I think about it, many said, well, it is fake news because all of you rednecks are saying that these boys are Syrians. They're not Syrians. They're Iraqis or maybe Sudanese. But remember, everybody initially said they were Syrians, and so because they were wrong, people said, well, see, you guys didn't have the story right. Oh, no, we had the story right. All you have to do is, instead of, the ethnicity, just bring in the religion, Islam.
There's such a... You can't mention anything about Islam without...
No!
Being labeled racist, being labeled...
Yeah, well, now you're a xenophobe. You bring up Islam. What's your problem with Islam? What's your problem with the religion of peace, buddy? I thought you're an American. I thought you're for freedom of religion. But see, it's beyond that. It's this belief system that many are bringing into this country that does not align with our values, correct?
Correct. And you mentioned the women, unable, and even in places like Iran and such, you read stories, unable to even be in the same room as a single man. Well, they have to have their own swimming pools if they're single that don't allow the opposite sex to keep their heads covered. Where's the global outcry for this? If a woman in America...
I'm with you. John, I am absolutely with you. I appreciate you expressing your opinions here on the Savage Nation. As always, Brian Sussman, proud to be filling in for Dr. Michael Savage.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Brian Sussman in for Dr. Michael Savage. Mike's back tomorrow behind the microphone. In the meantime, I'm here, and it's always a pleasure to speak to you. The phone number, 855-400-SAVAGE. We'll get your calls in just 1 second. We're going to check some of the other news going on around the country, and much of that you can get at michaelsavage.com. But this is quite a headline. Iran warns of World War III if Trump revamps that nuclear deal, which was just the stupidest of deals. So we'll get to that in just a moment. In the meantime, we were talking about, in keeping with the theme of borders, language, culture. I'm sure someone on the left would say, that's fake news. No, it's very real news. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump won this election bigly. But people are concerned, and you look at many of those who are coming to this country as refugees, and you scratch your head and say, listen, I'm all for, those who want to get to this country legally and want to get to this country because they want to bleed red, white, and blue, and they're for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and they think the Constitution is awesome. But for those who come to this country and basically want to turn our country into what theirs was, or theirs is, the country they came from, those 57 religion of peace countries, they weren't always religion of peace countries. They were turned over time. In many cases through the womb. They were leveraging the womb. This is a very long-suffering ideology, and it is. It's just that. Some would say it's a religion. Sure, it's a religion. But there's an ideology attached to that. It's called Sharia, and it's not compliant with American values. It's just not. Do I sound like a hater as I'm saying this? No. Are there Muslims who come to this country and say, screw Sharia, I love America. I want to come here. I want to raise my kids. I want to make money. I want to participate. Yeah, the Constitution, I like the Constitution. Yes, there are many. But on the other hand, there are many we're allowing into this country who don't buy any of that. And that's what we're talking about in countries, throughout small towns throughout America. These refugees are being inserted. The townspeople have nothing to say about it. The states have nothing to say about it. Case in point. Here's Bob. Bob's listening online via KSFO.com, as many do. Bob, let's talk about your small Wisconsin town. What's going on? Thanks for checking in on the Savage Nation.
Thank you. The population of Hudson, Wisconsin is 13,000 people, and our little once-a-week liberal newspaper informed us we'd been selected to receive 21 Syrian refugees, which the newspaper fully assured us have all been properly vetted by the U.S. government. I found it interesting that the article also mentioned that the reason our little town was selected is that there apparently is already one Syrian refugee here. And based on that one Syrian anchor, they've now decided to send in 21 more.
Sure, he needs friends, he needs colleagues, or maybe he needs co-conspirators. I don't know.
Yeah, the newspaper indicated that they were looking for a wide variety of charitable resources to provide housing and transportation, jobs, and a lot of other things for these 21 incoming. I have no idea how they're going to support themselves. If one wants to see how well Muslims integrate into American society, all you need to do is drive 40 miles west of here to Minneapolis and take a look at how well the literally tens and tens of thousands of Somalis have merged into American society.
Yeah, it hasn't worked out all that well. Just ask the honest people, in Minnesota. The problem is, if you bring this up and you speak openly and honestly about this, Bob, as you know, you're branded a hater.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate your call to the Savage Nation. No, this is what we're up against, folks. You sound like you're deemed a hater, when in fact you're just a truth teller. And again, the American government is in charge of vetting these people. I get that. But we're asking the wrong questions. We're vetting them to see if they have terrorist ties, not to see how deeply they believe in Sharia versus the Constitution of the United States. That's the defining difference. And when I look at the guy that Donald Trump has selected to replace Barack Obama's Department of Homeland Security chief, that Johnson guy, who has no business in that department, we've got a Marine general who's been talking about this immigration problem through our southern border for years. Other stories in the news. Iran warns of World War III if Trump prevails with this, if Trump revamps, I should say, this nuclear pact. And all along the campaign trail, what has he done? He's been talking about this deal we cut with Iran, which is absolute insanity. It's one of the worst deals ever. And to know that we're not curtailing them from ever building a nuclear weapon again is just untrue. What we're doing is we're allowing them to develop nuclear weapons, but it's just out there in the distance. They're not dialing down their nuclear program. And the way it works is if we suspect something fishy is going on, who do we have to contact in order to conduct an inspection? We have to contact Iran. And then what will Iran do? Well, it will give us so many days before the inspection takes place, and they will, of course, be the monitors of the inspection. They'll lead us through the inspection process. So they'll have plenty of time to clean things up, put things away, and then, of course, they will lead us. Oh, you can go right down this door. Oh, take this tunnel right over here. Hey, I think I see some tunnels over there. No, you don't. That's your imagination. Please, come with us this way. What a crock. Okay, you want a crock? I got a crock for you. Have I got a crock for you? Reindeer. 'Tis the season, after all. I like what Trump's saying on global warming. And I speak to you now as the former television meteorologist. That was my other life. But I remain active in the trade because I just love weather. I like how Trump's keeping an open mind to human-caused global warming because I think we all should, because I believe we should follow the truth wherever it leads. I'm always keeping an open mind. I've done a lot of research. I'm certainly not convinced at this point in time, but I'm always keeping an open mind. How about this? We're told now because of global warming over the past 16 years, reindeer are shrinking. Not the number of reindeer, the size of the reindeer. They say they're shrinking because of global warming. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Meanie, me. Reindeer are shrinking. One of the icons of Christmas is now shrinking. I wonder how Santa's doing. Is global warming causing him to lose a few lbs? Just curious. By the way, there's also a story in the news. It has to do with, let me see, I think it's on michaelsavage.com as well. There it is. Massive ancient civilization lies frozen beneath the Arctic ice. Okay, so if that's the case, well, wouldn't that tell you that the Earth was much warmer at one point in time? Oh, wait, okay, if that's too much for you, how about this? If I sent you up to the Arctic Circle on the frozen tundra. I sent you up to the Arctic Circle, frozen tundra. Let's say you're just like knee deep in snow, that part of the tundra. Maybe not even. Maybe it's springtime. Okay, let's take it as spring. The snow's gone. Now you're just on the pristine tundra, and I gave you a shovel and said, "Start digging." I got news for you. You could go down 6 to 10 feet, and suddenly, my God, what is this? It's a tusk. You start digging into fully preserved woolly mammoth. You start digging into fully preserved, the body's there, complete with eyeballs, teeth, skin, the whole schmear. Okay, it's all right there for you. You'd find camels. You would find tigers, lions, bears, oh my. It's all up there. Just start digging through the tundra. And in certain locations, you will find this stuff. Very well preserved, given the fact that these animals have been dead for thousands of years. So what does that tell you? Doesn't it tell you that at some point in time, the Earth was much warmer than it is now? How else would these animals survived? This was their habitat in those very northern latitudes. How could that be unless the Earth was warmer? So what happened since then? See, folks, the climate of the Earth is always changing. It's always changing. Other stories in the news as we peruse michaelsavage.com and then some. The New York Times. They hired that reporter who was outed via WikiLeaks. You know, the reporter who sent stories to Clinton's staffers for approval. I love WikiLeaks. I don't care who hacked into the DNC emails. I love it. Shows how corrupt an organization the DNC is. Glenn Thrush. Oh, yes. Huffington Post reported Monday, "We're thrilled Glenn Rush is joining the Times." Glenn Rush. Or I should say Thrush. Glenn Thrush. In one email to Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, Thrush chose to describe himself as a hack. Now, in the journalistic business, a hack is like a sellout. It's a shill. Okay, I agree I'm a hack. I agree I'm a sellout. I agree I'm a shill. I'm helping the campaign. Quote, "No worries, because I have become a hack, and I will send you the whole section that pertains to you," Thrush wrote to Podesta in an April 2015 email. "Please don't share or tell anyone I did this. Tell me if I effed up anything." Thrush's email included 5 paragraphs of a story pertaining to Podesta, and Podesta replied to Thrush telling him there were no problems with the writing. And those paragraphs appeared in a May story, quote, "Hillary's Big Money Dilemma." A hack. Hired by the Times. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, how glorious. You know what else I learned? I'm still still looking through the WikiLeaks emails because I find them fascinating. And one of the emails that I so enjoy that I saw this weekend had to do with the chairman of Google's parent company, Alphabet. Eric Schmidt is the guy's name. Big, huge power player who supposedly is going to be meeting with Trump this Wednesday. Trump's bringing in all these titans from the Silicon Valley to meet with him. Don't know what he's going to say, but he's bringing them in. I have a feeling that Trump is playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers, but nonetheless, I digress, as I often do when I'm behind the mic on the Savage Nation. The point is, Eric Schmidt, we know from a WikiLeaks email, he was present with Hillary on the night of the election. So he's with Team Hillary as they're watching the results come in. Now, I happen to be with Team Savage that night. I was with Michael Savage, my co-host on KSFO, Katie Green, and our producer, Sherry E. We were with Michael Savage and many of his friends that night. It was just a delightful evening in San Francisco. So we're there. Eric Schmidt is with Hillary and her team watching the election results, and it's noted that he had on his jacket lapel a little identifying button that said staff. So here you go. One of the most influential, truly, Google, very influential company. They have many properties that influence social media greatly. Eric Smith noted as staff for Team Clinton on the night of the election. So what do you think about these stories? Let's get to your comments next. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-SAVAGE. Brian Sussman filling in on this, The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Brian Sussman filling in for Dr. Michael Savage. By the way, I've got a copy of his book, Scorched Earth, in my hot little hands, and it remains a great read. And I sure hope Trump is reading it because it does outline a plan to help make America great again. Meantime, we've been juggling a lot of balls here on the Savage Nation. One of them has to do with our immigration program, our refugee program more specifically, and how we're vetting for the wrong things. We're vetting for terrorism. We should be vetting for one's adherence to Sharia. Otherwise, we're in a heap of trouble. Mike's checking in from Pennsylvania, WSBA. Mike, thanks for joining us on this, The Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for having me on the show. I've read Scorched Earth, fabulous book. It's almost like listening to the show sitting in your couch here.
It's true.
You were right on with the global warming assessment. And I read it.
Yeah, how's that? Hey, Mike, how's that global warming working out for you in Pennsylvania right now?
Well, we're pretty covered. We're shoveling quite a bit, quite frankly. Yeah, I say that every winter. It's like, wow, more global warming on my front. Yeah, the buried animals, the woolly bears and the lions and the tigers, oh my, it's like, oh yeah, somebody's got to figure this out someday. But, hey, I read a situation way back, I believe when bin Laden was still around bothering us, that in Dearborn, Michigan has become very saturated with Muslim communities taking over. There's signs, there's Muslim signs that we can't read. We don't know what they're telling us, but you drive by and they're flying flags that are not our American flags.
Right.
And a well-known mall in the Toledo, Ohio area and some Best Buys and Circuit Cities and stuff were targeted with many purchases of computers and electronic equipment, purchased with stolen credit cards, marshaled down to the state of Florida, and then shipped overseas to the bin Laden crew back when that was a big terrorist threat. And it's like, wow, you put this all together with the fact that they don't want to mix in with us. They don't want to mix in at all. They just want to come in, do their dirty work, and that's all they're interested in.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. We have a big auto auction here in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's at a place called Fremont, which is it's a high percentage of refugees who've come into this country, and there's this auto auction, and you see people of that persuasion purchasing. My friends who are in the auto biz tell me all the time, purchasing trucks, large quantities of trucks, which they then ship overseas. Have you ever seen all of the trucks that ISIS is driving? Those are really nice, mostly Toyotas and a few other vehicles mixed in, other manufacturers. But most of those were sold originally here in the United States of America. There's a pipeline to get them their equipment, and believe it or not, it starts over here. Brian Sussman filling in for Michael Savage on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.